You got the distribution call, you got the placement, you did everything right. And somewhere between the purchase order and the shelf, something went sideways. Your product isn't there, or it's there, but it's wrong. Or nobody can tell you either way. Every CPG brand hits this wall. Most of them hit it more than once. I'm Jordan Karcher, founder and CEO of Eileen. Know Thy Shelf is the show for founders and CPG superstars who are done taking anyone's word for what's happening at the shelf. Real stories, real data, one question underneath all of it. Your product is listed as in stock. Is it though? Ben Patton built and sold companies, ran a sovereign wealth fund out of Abu Dhabi, and retired at 31. Then his sister-in-law fell in love with a spritz on the Italian coast, and now he's the CEO of Saint Spritz, one of the fastest growing wine-based RTDs in the country. Ben, can you walk me back before Saint Spritz? You had a very diverse background, investment banking, private equity, sovereign wealth. How did you get involved in Saint Spritz, and how did that background lead you to this point in your career?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and it's a great introduction. So I went to UPenn, and as you probably know, everyone from Penn kind of goes into banking. Put on that trajectory, was pretty common from my school. So I went investment banking to private equity, and then I followed my brother to Dubai, where we started a shipping company in 2006, and really was more like a right place, right time. So when the global financial crisis happened, a lot of the very wealthy, royal family members were freaking out, and it was just a really shallow, like human capital market. And there was very few people in that market that could understand like CMBS or knew how to use a Bloomberg terminal. And so very quickly, I was pulled in to run one of those funds, and it was an exciting unbelievable opportunity. I did that for a bit and then came back stateside, built a company with my brother that we sold. And it was basically early retirement. So what I learned was there's some people that are really suitable for retirement. And my brain is just, whether it's overactive, whether it's ADD, I just got restless. I was just really looking for another opportunity. I would say that I'm the kind of personality type that, when I'm 100 on my deathbed, I want to look back and think of like all the cool stuff I
Yeah.
accomplished.
Yeah.
And so sitting idle, even though it was financially comfortable, was not fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
And my
And
sister-in-law
were you
came
30 at the time?
well, 31 when we sold our company, and I was basically, set up,
Yeah.
well, actually, sorry, 31 when we started, 35 when we sold. So
Got
let me rephrase. Yeah.
one
So
for sure.
set up and in a good place. And then my sister and sister-in-law came to my wedding in Lake Como, and I had tried to roll out the red carpet for all the friends traveling that far. We had the best champagne, the best liquor, the best of everything, and everyone just wanted Aperol Spritz. So like the one Spritz station was super crowded. And then my sister and sister-in-law were drinking this all summer, came back and said, we want to do this as a business. And they basically, needed me or my brother to help roll up their sleeves. Both of us, my brother and I have been business partners. He's a phenomenal operator, but he was so focused on being like super soccer coach dad that it was a better fit for me because I was craving doing something. And he was very happy just being, a soccer coach at the time. So I rolled up my sleeves and we started gunning. And so that's how I got into the spritz game, if you will.
Amazing. And so when you did start Saint Spritz, or when the family started Saint Spritz, was this still at the tail end of the early retirement, or had you been working on some other projects at this point?
Tail end of early retirement. I would say I was for about 3 years just chomping at the bit, looking for something to do. It's very rare you get to do stuff with family. So even though no part of me wanted like exposure to CPG, not that CPG is bad, it's just I didn't have the depth there. So it's not an area that I would have said, oh, this is the field I want to start my next venture in. But a lot of me really wanted to be able to do something with family again. And this was the first time I could do something with my younger sister, who's an influencer. I've always said, you should stop just getting paid by others to promote their brand and you should build your own brands. And so this was a chance for her to build her own brand, for me to help bring in my skill set to run it. And so it was exciting.
And so I think that's a really good kind of segue to the question of your background is not traditional CPG, finance, private equity. It's a skill set that I find is lacking in the CPG world, is that really heavy financial background. But on the other side, building a brand is wildly different than anything in the investment banking space. How have those two pathways merged for you? And is there gaps there where you hand off a lot of the marketing side and you focus on the operations and finance, or have you evolved into also being heavily involved in the actual product development?
very beginning, I think all of us wear as many hats as you can, right? And that's how everybody should do it because you don't want to put people on payroll and then you burn through so much cash, right? So all of us are wearing a lot of hats. All of us were involved in product development. All of us were involved in marketing, photo shoots. And then you start to realize certain team members just really have more of a talent into one area. They're happy to like take charge of that area. And is it like a natural fit? We're really lucky in that our skill sets are all complementary, or at least mine is with the other two co-founders. And there's not a bunch of overlap, right? That's a really lucky place to be because they don't have to think about numbers, finance, margins, pricing, procurement, production, logistics, legal. Like they just say, well, that's a Ben lane, which is great because, I can run that side of the business very, very well. On the flip side, the things that they have a good talent for is, what I would say defines product market fit, right? It's who our customer is, what our customer's actually looking for, and they can help kind of get it there. And I'm so grateful that they have that skill set because I find that area to be more like faith
Yeah.
driven.
Yeah.
Whereas a finance stuff is very numbers and facts driven. And so I can get to answers and say, this is the right answer. Their side, it's like, I just have faith that this is going to work because this is what I would buy or something. Right.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'm a person who really likes to have proof before I have spend. So it's great that that's like where they feel, super confident and they're really able to like bring that skill set and execute. And we were really blessed in that JoJo. So Mallory and JoJo kind of have two different skill sets, but JoJo, she's our microphone. So once we have an idea, she can use her platform to get it out there. And really quickly, we could find out like, does this have product market fit? Like, are people responding to it? And if they aren't, great. We could discard an idea before we went too deep with it. So that's a really safe hedge, right? It's like you don't have to spend six figures and then find out this was a flop. And so that's a really great asset. And then on the flip side, Mallory, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, she is like a savage B2B. Like she can hit up everybody on LinkedIn and, get to the yes person and then tell our story in a way that gets us a yes. I mean, we seem to be getting a lot of yeses. So that's great.
That's amazing. And I think it's testament to the quality of the product and the messaging and traction, obviously. But for the listeners, Saint Spritz isn't just a traditional normal hard seltzer. Can you kind of talk about the product a little bit? It obviously starts with the Aperol Spritz, spurring the idea, but how is the production of the Spritz product a little different than some of the other RTDs on the shelf?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm really glad you asked it because when you look at our packaging and our form factor, it looks like it's another RTD. It's a hard seltzer, right? I mean, the market got flooded with products like that. And I think that is exactly why people like my sister and sister-in-law were left wanting, is because so many brands came into the category, the RTD category, and they said to themselves, look at the success of White Claw, look at the success of High Noon. Those brands have minimal sugar and they use a 100-calorie limit. And within those guardrails, they come up with a new product. That's not what we were trying to do. That had nothing to do with what we were trying to come up with. The product we were looking for is saying the female consumer that was, into skinny girl margaritas, that was rose all day culture. She's now moving into an age where she needs something that's more sessionable, like she could drink it and then not feel like she's got a headache the next day, that, doesn't leave her feeling too tipsy to go out later. And so like, rose all day culture, like it was heavy boozing. So Spritz has really started to fit in that box because they're lighter on the alcohol content. You could have a couple spritzes by the pool and still feel fine to get ready and go out that evening. And so we went down the avenue of saying, let's come up with something that really checks this box that's a full flavored cocktail. And the only thing that's really similar between our product and, say, another hard seltzer is the packaging and form factor, right? And so we took advantage of the fact that those brands in the hard seltzer movement made it really easy and affordable to bring things to market in a 12-ounce sleek can. But the liquid that goes in for us was never constrained by the idea of 100 calories and 0 grams of sugar. We literally said, make it clean, whole food compliant from day one, nothing artificial, no red dye 40, no yellow 6, yellow 7, whatever, nothing that a well-informed consumer would ever want to put in their body. And I kind of said, if a fifth grader can't read the label, then we're not putting it in, because there's a lot of fancy science words on the back of things, which are preservatives or, sulfides. And I said, no, no, no. Ours is going to be so easy to understand. And when we landed on the formula we liked, we were really happy with the fact that the calorie count was actually like 50% lower than a conventional spritz made in a bar. Yeah. And you didn't need to do all the stuff that people were doing. Like, our shelf life is great. You didn't have to have any preservatives. Alcohol itself is a little bit of a preservative. And so we were really, happy with where our product landed.
Amazing. And so when you launched the product, was it D2C initially, or did you launch in retail at the I guess the first SKUs that came out?
D2C originally, and that for us was do we have something moment, or is this like a good idea to us, but then the rest of the market isn't as excited? And this is really where my sister comes in with so much value, because she has like an audience. And so we launched D2C using kind of her platform as like to get the word out. And we sold out in our product so much faster than expected. And it took us, I think, like 4 months to get restocked, because what amount of inventory we bought, we thought would last, a quarter. We're like, let's get 3 months worth of inventory so that we are good. And we sold out of it in like 3 weeks. And so then every time we were trying to get restocked, and look, it's a good problem to have, but it was a problem because all of these other things that we kind of had in motion that created momentum for the brand burned off before we could monetize, right? So we learned from that experience that, number one, the market was actually looking for something that, tasted like a full body cocktail and not just another hard seltzer. Two, that they did want something that was, better for you. We like to say it's a better for you, ready for you spritz, because we didn't have any preservatives or toxic dyes. And three, we also learned we always have to plan extra inventory, because what we didn't want to do is be in a situation where customers want it or retailers want it, and we can't say yes because we don't have the product ready to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, demand planning in the early days, or even just when you have a large influencer involved or multiple influencers, is so tricky because demand can be lumpy. And obviously, when you roll into retail, that adds another element of timing and production. But talk to me a bit about the non-alc launch in your case, because I think you had probably worked out some of that logic, and then you launched non-alc in November, I believe, and within the first 3 months, you're the number one selling non-alc on Amazon. So what was that journey like, and how much did that initial experience come into play when you were launching that product?
Great question. So the non-alc for us was a little bit out of necessity and a little bit out of like it made sense as an extension. So necessity first. Jojo was trying to get pregnant, right? And so she was like, I can't like get pregnant and still be drinking. So it makes sense for me as a co-founder to start working on something that's a non-alc. And so we said, great, just start tooling around in the lab and come up with the extension of the brand that's the non-alkali for her own purposes. And so once she kind of came through that, we had already built up a little bit of experience on production. So we said, well, let's do a little bit of a pilot run on this small production run. We were going to be like the signature Spritz sponsor of the Rise Festival. So we're like, oh, we'll launch it at Rise so that we can get people an opportunity to try it. And we'll bring it on online just on our website. We intentionally did not tell any retailers about it because we were worried we would cannibalize our opportunity to get our main SKUs in. And we said, man, we don't want them to say yes to this, but not say yes to our main, our main product line. So that was how we did it. The feedback was terrific. I mean, a lot of people all of a sudden when they had the non-alc say, man, I actually prefer this over the alc, because the flavor profiles when you remove alcohol come through so much cleaner, like the botanicals and the different flavors that we add to it. They're not as I guess disguised or harder to pick up. Like you can pick up the notes a lot easier with your nose and stuff when the alcohol is removed. So some people like really love them, and you could drink them all throughout the week with like, your lunch Sam. I'm drinking one right now off of lunch, and I don't have the guilt of thinking, oh, I'm a guy who drinks alcohol in the middle of the work week. So that's been great. So then we said, this is the first time with a product we can actually leverage Amazon. And the reason I say leverage Amazon is because anybody who's out there with any product, if you're trying to sell it on your own website, you just naturally have a harder time than if you were able to sell on Amazon. The downside to Amazon, everybody's aware, is like there's fees for that, right? The fulfillment fees, the storage fees, referral fees. And so you have to accept that that's a cost to the business if you go the Amazon route. But it was exceptionally tricky with alcohol. So with alcohol, you have the delivery cost and you have adult signature and everything like that. So we said, look, our non-alcs can go into Amazon. Let's get them into Amazon. And basing our expected sales off of what we were doing at our own website, we shipped a certain amount of inventory saying, hey, let's ship them whatever, like 4 or 5 pallets of product. Let's see how this goes. And in the first like 2 months, we sold out. We sell more on Amazon in the first 2 months than we do an entire year on our website. And it just goes to show you that it's so easy for people to just add to cart or check out that for us, Amazon was this like amazing tool where we could say, wow, like this really shows you that there is product market fit, because now customers and all the reasons that you maybe don't convert because there's some drop off, they have to enter their information, they've never bought from you before. That is an annoying part of the process. You just go to Amazon, add to cart, boom, it's done, right? So we've sold out now twice at Amazon. I just now have like restocking that's literally there waiting for their warehouses to, I guess, qualify it being received. And I have another production run that's finished and now it's shipping to like our 3PL to prep it for Amazon as well. So we never expected it to like sell out so fast. It's now sold out like 3 times. So I'm restocking it and running higher and larger production runs just so we can keep that from constantly happening. And we think that our non-alc line will be a substantial part of our business going into 2027.
Amazing. And do you think the non-alkaline supports the alkaline, or do you think they are separate entirely?
People can argue it either way, right? I think it supports it because I'm a perfect example of somebody who is not completely abstaining from alcohol. I still drink, right? But I like to have something refreshing during the middle of the week with like lunch or dinner. And so I think it's a supportive, thing for the brand, because if I didn't have the non-alc option, I'd probably be drinking poppies or Olipop or something, right? So I think it's really supportive. The other reason is I think that when you're a beverage brand, people have to start to see like where can you expand, right, outside of your SKUs. And we don't see ourselves really going beyond our original thesis of popular Italian beverages brought stateside, right? That was really what we were like this. Is it really popular in Europe? Would a certain segment of the American population like to try this? If we started doing things that are like a lychee martini or a Cuba Libre, like those are geographies that aren't consistent with like our real theme. So just going from our core Italian flavors to a version of those that are non-alcs that people can enjoy. And I also think that there's this movement that's like zebra striping. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but you go out and you have one cocktail and then you have one non-alc and in between, and you're basically hydrating while still enjoying yourself,
Yeah.
with us.
Versus, the 4 cocktails in 2 hours, and you go, oh man, that Negroni 3 and 4 is never a good idea.
Yeah, right. But if you, in between that, if you said, oh, drink 2 and 4 were non-alcs, you felt great the next day.
How we can get to 6 and 8, and that's the key. That's the key. But one thing I really like that you did that was counter to, let's say, a common logic or recommendation would be, you guys went wide before deep. So you launched nationwide at Target, I believe, with Saint Spritz, which forced you into multiple states. And obviously, for listeners who aren't familiar with the 3-tier system in bev-alc, you have to work through a distributor, and each distributor has its own state and market. So to launch with Target, you had to pick up multiple distributors, multiple markets. Can you talk me through a bit of that logic and actually an asset versus most people telling you to focus on a small footprint for a long period of time?
Yeah. So I would say that the conventional advice is actually pretty sound. It's not flawed. I would tell anybody, until you can show that you have like traction, you shouldn't intentionally try to go wide. It's just really hard to support wide. For our scenario, when we got 4 test stores in Target, they performed so unbelievably well. Target scheduled a call with us without knowing what they were going to say. We thought, well, man, maybe they're going to give us the opportunity to expand to the rest of the Targets in Dallas or the rest of Texas even. That was our optimistic hope, right? And they came back and said, you guys are outselling the category average by 40x. So we want to go nationwide as soon as possible. And we were like, great news to hear we're doing so well, but the reality is we're just not prepared to go nationwide. And so we said, thank you, but no thank you. And we would prefer like Texas only right now. Right. And they came back and, really said, no, like, we're really going to help, like, we're going to support the brand properly. So after some back and forth conversation, we came to the conclusion, we said, guys, they are going to go forward with doing a big highlight of Spritz in America because Spritz were catching on, pretty quick. It was a fast growing subsegment of the alcohol area. They want us to be one of the two brands they want to highlight because they've seen our traction with their consumer. And they see that we kind of check a lot of boxes the consumers are looking for, like all natural ingredients, better for you, no preservatives, no red dye 40, etc. And so we came to the conclusion that in every industry, there tends to be like a number one and two. And you see this in a lot of things. I mean, you think about sodas, there's Coke and Pepsi, the better for you sodas, Poppy and Olipop, or vice versa. Cell phones, it's iPhone or Android. And so we decided, look, if we say no to this, two other brands will become number one and two, and we'll have a very long journey to catch them. But if we say yes, then all we really have to do at this point is think about how do we make that happen? How do we go from a team that's supporting like really one or two metros trying to expand to all of Texas to how do we support the whole United States? And that's kind of where I told the team, I was like, leave that with me. Like, you just leave that with me. Like, this is really a numbers challenge more than it is anything else. Like, they can come up with a creative ad and you do it once, it can work in every single market. They don't have to do it a bunch of times. But when it comes to like regional warehousing, logistics, infrastructure, production, procurement, those things aren't just move the creative in multiple spaces, right? Or get an influencer in other spaces. Those take a lot more work, but that's kind of the area where I have the expertise to bring to the team. So I told them, look, I want to get to a decision on what the opportunity size is for our brand quickly. I don't want to spend 3 years trying to decide, do we have something here that the customers really like? I want to figure that out in the next 12 months. And so I was like, let's do it. Don't worry about all the things it'll take to get there. I'll solve for that. And then let's get going. And so we got to that conclusion. Target was a phenomenal first launch partner. We aligned with R&DC to go nationwide. Great people at R&DC, but the situation, the timing of when we came onto that platform was bad timing for us as a supplier because they had some internal challenges that, affected everybody. But, I always kind of say whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Right. And so on the opposite side of everything that's happened, I think we're a much stronger brand and we're in a much stronger position to succeed as we get, Publix taking us nationwide this year, Whole Foods taking us nationwide, Costco giving us central market, the central, territory. We wouldn't have been able to say yes to those guys and execute well had we not gone through like the grow up phase with Target.
Yeah, building that infrastructure is just so huge and important in the non-alc space. And speaking of distributors, what is the distributor experience like? So as you're a new brand, you're emerging, you had a lot of traction, but obviously they have thousands of brands. How did you tackle that challenge of ensuring you were getting attention and they were kind of holding up their end of the deal?
I will tell everyone that it's always going to be a challenge unless you are at one of like the top 10 beverage houses in the country. If you're Gallo, if you're Diageo, if you're Constellation, you're Brown Forman, when you ask for something, they're listening because there's a fear of you moving your business, right? We're not that. Even though we've been a very successful brand and we're really dominating the category, we still have to rely on the same thing that makes two people like friends, right? Like building rapport. We have to spend the time getting to know the people, getting, to understand about their families, their kids, and vice versa. And when you get to that level of like trust and relationship building, now somebody will take your call. Now somebody will actually take the time to respond to your email because they know a little bit about you, they know a little bit about your family, and that just takes time, right? And I can't say we have that built in all of the states in the country, but there are certain markets that we as a team go out to and are really trying to foster that we've built that rapport. So even though we aren't Diageo, I feel really confident in those states that when I reach out to them, I say, hey, can we try to put this, program together, that they really do, actively work on making that happen. I will tell anyone who's listening that if you go into it with the expectation that your distributor is your logistics partner, they are simply a partner who's going to take the product from you in one place and disseminate it into hundreds or thousands of places. But it still falls upon you to make sure that the product turns, to make sure that the retailer is getting everything. If you use that as your expectation, you will probably not be disappointed with any distributor. I think they're really good logistics partners. If you think there's supposed to be a sales force for you, then you'll probably be frustrated because you're like, they're not getting us accounts, they're not doing this. And I think the days of that happening are basically behind us. Most of them want to function like logistics arm, and they do that really well. So you just have to accept that and start planning on building out your own, sales team.
For sure. No, I think that's a great point. I think for so long people did expect distributors to execute the on the ground sales game, but there's been so many changes as you alluded to with RNDC and just shake up in the category, movement of brands, cutbacks of boots on the ground, and then obviously you're seeing a lot with AI probably coming into play or just automated orders and managing systems. You do need that personal touch. I think you have to have some relationship. You have to have somebody that'll pick up the phone and there's no way around it other than just doing that hard work. So I think that's been a huge asset for you guys from what I've seen. And I think you said it perfectly for anybody thinking about breaking into multiple markets. So with Saint Spritz, I mean, by all measures, you guys are kind of crushing it. You're winning. Great margin profile. Growth has been crazy. But let's just say for the sake of this conversation, you're very data oriented. What are things that concern you when it comes to your growth or what you're looking at when you're taking in the data from different retailers in different parts of the country?
Yeah. Well, I think that what concerns me is spreading my team's efforts amongst all the retailers that are telling us yes, right?
Yeah,
When Target told us yes, it was really easy to say, man, we just crush it at Target. Let's send all our traffic to Target. But we're having a lot of yeses come in, and sometimes the way that those yeses come in are harder for us to execute. I'll give you a good example. Walmart has taken us in, I don't know, 200 something stores, but they're 200 stores spread around the US in markets that it's not like concentrated to one territory. They didn't take all of the SKUs, they took some of the SKUs. So where I get concerned is when somebody might look at, well, how are you moving in Walmart? And I look at that and say, there is so much opportunity to make Walmart bigger and better. What we have to have, and what we are soon having, because we're flying in to meet them next week, is a communication with them on, let us show you how this works better. Like, don't give me 200 stores spread all across the US. Give me 200 stores in one state. And I can message to the customer, I'm now available in that state, rather than I have so many people text me and DM and say, hey, I went into my Walmart here in Missouri and they don't carry it. I'm like, yeah, because it's one of the stores that doesn't carry it. So I get anxiety when we see some data where we had fragmented expansion that doesn't really show the potential of the brand. And I always want the opportunity to show someone, like, let us show you how we fix this, because you don't always get dialogue with the retailers. And without that, if somebody just looks at the data the way I might see it at first blush without understanding context, it may not look like it should. The second challenge that I'm trying to figure out how to break through, and I welcome anyone who can help us, is what Wayne Wu of BMG told me, is wine jail. He's like, you're stuck in wine jail. And, basically, because we're made with a wine, we land in the certain side of the store that is also where you might find 19 Crimes or Mayomi. And so many of our consumers go into the store looking for Saint Spritz. They go directly to where they see Surfside and High Noon and White Claw. And then they send us a message saying, oh, I went into my local Publix. I didn't see y'all. And I'm like, we got to figure out how to get cross merchandise where our consumers are looking, not where we are shelved based off of what our alcohol base is, right? So that's a challenge that we've got to figure out how to overcome as well.
and that unlocks so much opportunity if you can find yourself in the cold box. And I think the velocity is just going to go through the roof if you can crack that code. And I think it's something where if anybody does have a good solution that's listening, let us know.
Well, I could tell you, we think we have an angle there. I say we have an angle. The truth is it's Reyes has the angle, but we're about to have 11 of our markets fall under Reyes's purview because they're buying 11 off of RNDC. So we're really excited because for the first time ever, we will have beer distributor representation, and the beer guys control the cold blocks real estate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's going to be huge. And with that shakeup, are you realigning your distributors elsewhere, or is it staying put and just taking the new ownership in the RNDC markets?
For the most part, we're just taking where RNDC has sold it off, right?
Yeah.
So if they said, hey, we're selling these states to Colombia, we're going, right? We're selling these states to Reyes, we're going. Selectively in some markets, we're trying to figure out if the new distributor house that we would automatically be moving to is the right fit for our product. But I would say for the most part, we're just saying, look, let's not judge them right out of the gates. Let's assume the best, and then we'll see if it works. And we'll see how that goes. We're fortunate enough that we had a rapport and we had a relationship with Reyes already because when we were just in Texas, we were with the beer network, and Reyes was our distributor in Austin. So they knew us, we knew them. We only switched to RNDC when we needed to go nationwide for
Yeah.
Target.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like a little bit of a homecoming in that regard with Reyes.
That's great. And so I mean, I really appreciate the time. I always like to ask one last question just as we're finishing up. But you're obviously a very successful entrepreneur, various business ventures, and then now Saint Spritz is another seeming home run. What advice would you give to somebody starting, let's say, a CPG brand for the first time, or trying to break into the beverage space that you wish you had going back in time to when you guys started Saint Spritz?
I thought about this a lot. And I always think about, man, if I know now, or if I knew then what I know now, what would I do different? And the first thing I would tell you is do something that could succeed quickly on DTC. It's such a great way of measuring, do you have good product market fit? Things that require adult signature upon delivery are probably not a good thing to do on DTC, and things that are heavy. So I would tell people, definitely pursue your passion. If you can do it on DTC, that's the best way. It's a low cost way of testing your idea out. Focus on things that are high margin, lightweight, and potentially like reconsumable. I mean, Groons just crushed it. And I think everybody looks at that and says it was lightweight, high gross margin, repeat consumption. And it more than me telling people, like they really kind of laid out the map of like, if you could find a product that fits into these checks, these boxes, it's a great place to start.
Absolutely. I mean, just like the cash conversion cycle on D2C is great. You can reinvest in growth without taking a lot of outside capital. The whole model. I mean, formerly my first company was a D2C creative as well. It did fuel the business. It was something that made it possible quickly. Where, as you know, in retail and working through distributors, you're floating a lot of inventory on a
Yeah.
regular. That ties up cap, so it's not even working. But thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I really appreciate your information about what it's like building a brand as successful and rapidly growing as Saint Spritz. I love that you're doing it with your family. I think this thing's a home run. I'm sure it's going to end up doing whatever you want it to do and what the family wants it to do. But pulling for you, I'm excited to see it. Anybody that's listening, get out there, try it. Non-alc obviously available as well if you want to mix it up. But for anybody else that's interested in checking out how their brand doing on the shelf, if you've got lapses in velocity, you've got gaps in orders, if you've got phantom inventory, let us know at shopwitheileen.com. We'll get out there, we'll check the stores for free, and we'll get you data back as if you're on the store. So thank you guys again. And as always, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Jordan.
Thank you, Ben. It was great. I appreciate the